You might not give a hoot about the city of Marion, but this morning's guest surely does. Meet her, coming up next on All American People. Good morning. Welcome to All American People. This morning we're at the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce. We're focused on Marion, South Carolina. And we're visiting with one of its native children, Ann Powell. Good morning, Ann.
Thank you for having me back, Greg.
Thank you so much for getting in.
I'm so glad to be in Conway.
Absolutely.
Next to Marion, I love Conway.
Is Conway the next favorite? Of course, you live in Florence now.
Yeah, but it's
you
not
love
my
Conway.
favorite. No.
Yeah. Oh.
Conway and Merle's Inlet maybe is next.
Merle's
I'll
Inlet?
tell you about that. There's
Yeah.
a connection with Marion and Merle's
There
Inlet.
is some big connection.
Big connection.
We're not going to get there just yet, but I do want to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the funny thing is that idea of growing up in Marion and loving Marion so much, and of course hearing you say at times, I live in Florence, but I'm from Marion.
I'm trying to write a little book about growing up in Marion, and that's my title.
Is that right?
I live
Good.
in Florence, but I'm from Marion.
Have you begun to put pen to paper?
I put something on tape.
Okay.
I'm recording.
That's a great
some things.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got a guest actually tomorrow, and I'm hopeful we can get him in even later this week on Friday, but who said that he did a series of letters to his sons and he dictated those letters. So surely the opportunity of getting things on a tape recorder is a great way, if you've got them on tape, to begin moving it to print.
Well, Genevieve Chandler Peterkin from Merle's Inlet,
Yes.
who wrote Heaven is a Beautiful Place, she gave me that advice. She said, don't just talk to yourself to the recorder. Get somebody and talk to them and record it.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Good for you.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Now, this is the second or third time we've mentioned Merle's Inlet. So since we're talking about Marion today, give us the connection. What is it? Why do so many folks from Marion either have homes in Merle's Inlet or have moved to Merle's Inlet or love Merle's Inlet so much?
All right, well, let me give you a little history of Marion County and tie that in.
Sure.
It was formed in 1785, and it was first called Liberty County.
Liberty.
Because the state, or the colony, was divided into districts, and this Liberty was in Georgetown District.
Okay.
So then, in 1798, they changed the name to Marion because of Marion, the Swamp Fox's accomplishments and his wall
Francis
thing.
Marion, yes.
Yeah. And Francis Marion and Robert E. Lee are my heroes.
Oh, wow.
And in 1800, they built a courthouse, and the town grew around it. And Thomas Godbolt laid out the plan, and he donated the land. And I lived on Godbolt Street, and I played that courthouse grounds and the stairs. They had beautiful wrought iron stairs. If you've ever been through Marion, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So I used to slide down those wrought iron steps, you know. And it was just the center of the town, and you know, and you had to pass it to go on into Main Street. And so, that was Marion. And Merle's Inlet. I'll jump into it. There were some Wilcoxes that lived in Marion, and they went to Merle's Inlet and bought land. And the Hermitage, one of the famous, you know, was the Wilcoxen. And Genevieve Chandler, her mother was a Wilcox. And so people started going to Marion. And my Aunt Addie, who lived with us, she was my father's sister that never married. She told me that she went to Merle's Inlet in a wagon, stopped at the Walkamo at Socastee, and spent the night, and then crossed on a ferry, and then went to Merle's Inlet and stayed at Oliver's Lodge, which then was a boarding house. You could have room and board at Oliver's Lodge.
Son of a gun.
Yeah. And so I don't know what it is, but let me just read you a list of names from Marion. There's an Evans and a Godbolt and a Gasquet and a Blackwell and a Tillman. All right, now Tillman. Think of Tillman Beach.
Yes, of course.
Mr.
That's on the other end of the county, though, right?
Mr. Horace Tillman was my godfather.
Oh, wow.
And they did so much for Marion and so much for Marion County. And there were the Bucks. All right, you know about Bucksport?
Yes.
All right, the Bucks came from Pennsylvania and came down to Marion. and then came down to the inlet and the neck, as we call
I
it.
don't think I knew that. My father-in-law's middle name is Buck.
Oh,
I'll
is
have
it?
to ask him about
Well, one
that.
of my best friends that I love so was Edward Buck Hamer, and he taught at Washington and Lee. But we were friends all throughout. Even after my marriage, we kept in touch, you know. But it was a Buck family, and they built homes at Merle's Inlet. So I don't know, there was just something about the inlet. And there was the Hamer family, and the Monroe family, and Wheeler, and Gregg, and Bethea, and Cross, McIntyre, Johnson. All right, let me tell you about the Johnsons. There was Colonel Monroe Johnson, who was big in the Commerce Department in Washington.
Yes.
I mean, we had some illustrious people from Marion.
Oh, yeah.
One of the names was Blue, and Victor Blue was an admiral and named a battleship for him in Charleston. And my older sister went down for the christening, you see. And Rupert Blue became Surgeon General of the United States.
Son of a gun.
So we did.
Well, now, and you're a lot more fun than going down a bunch of, you're naming all these names with hopes to connect with some folks here in our viewing area.
Yes.
Who may be children of or grandchildren of many of the
Davis,
friends.
Mullins, Miles, Rogers,
Right.
Foxworth, Carmichael, you know, and Bethea, because I'm not saying it because I was a Bethea,
Sure.
but P.Y. Bethea was supposed to have drawn the first and the original map of Marion County. So there were a lot of important people, we thought. And
well, you know, the last time I saw you, Ann, you and Pete Sealer, who was with us day before yesterday here on the show, had attended my wedding this past summer on July 3rd to my bride, whose father's mother was a Marion County native. And,
yes, well, let me bring that in.
Yeah.
Well, let me just start with, I was 5 years old when someone took me in an automobile and brought me to Myrtle Beach, and that was my first view of the ocean.
Oh, boy.
So I loved Myrtle Beach from then on, you know. But I mean, it was, I can't explain it. You've had to have been born in Marion and experienced. And I want to say that everybody that was born and raised in Marion doesn't feel as passionate as I do, I'm sure.
About Marion.
About Marion.
Right.
But I just do.
Yeah.
You know. And so, but it was normal. I grew up. I loved all of my teachers. I loved learning to read was the most exciting thing in the world. Can you believe that now with people doing all they're doing?
Oh, yeah.
But it was. And we had a public library that supposedly was the second oldest library in the state.
Really?
In Marion. Of course, Charleston, you know, was first.
Sure.
But we loved to read. And the librarian lived with us. And so many people lived with us, and sometimes they paid and sometimes they didn't, and sometimes they ate with us and sometimes they didn't. And my house was called the Villa Bell because my mother's name was Bell.
No.
You know? But I was used to a lot of older people and people coming and going. We never locked the door.
Oh, boy.
Never locked the door,
yes.
you know. But I loved school, and I loved all my teachers. And I'm thinking now the reason I love, well, they were good people, but I think I loved them because they thought I was smart. I fooled them, see. I don't know how I did that, but I did.
Yeah,
and they
let's
thought
hear
I was
the
smart,
secret.
so
That's right. I'd like to get on to that.
So I loved them. Well, we could ride our bicycles all over everywhere. We could play games outside. Nothing is safe now, and I just think how much everything has changed. And everything wasn't perfect. Nobody was perfect, but everybody got along. And it just seemed, you know, that it was so much easier. And they say, well, it was simple. Well, it was. We worked with pencil and paper and not computer, you know. And there was no television. And maybe that's why we read, you know, a lot. But it was just great. And Main Street had the right name, Main Street.
In Marion.
Marion. Because everything we needed was on Main Street.
Was right there.
Now, see, we weren't so sophisticated. So you can't believe that from the doctor's office, where you were told maybe where you were going to be born, or at home, no hospital, you know, to the undertaker was on Main Street.
All right there,
I mean, grocery stores, drug stores, filling stations, hardwares, hat shops, a dress shop.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. And you know, we talk about diversity and all these sort of terms now. And Marion wasn't cosmopolitan, but do you know that on that one street, we had a Greek, John Angelus, that made the best hot dog that you'll ever eat. And he didn't make a lot of money in Marion, so he moved to Myrtle Beach, and I think he made $1 million making those hot dogs.
Making hot dogs, yeah.
And then right next door, there were men of color that had a barber shop. And they were the nicest gentlemen. And my mother would not have taken me anywhere but there. And I got in that first chair, the big barber's chair. They put a board across. I sat there, and Brunson was his name, and he cut my hair.
No,
yeah.
Ann.
All right.
Something
And
you
then,
remember vividly, yes.
And then on down the street and across the street, there was the nicest Jewish family. And Ms. Hornbein had a dress shop. They had a 5 and dime. And you see, we never thought about that they were this or that or that. You know, we just didn't think about that. We all liked each other. We all got along. Now, I know there were bad people, and I know Marion wasn't perfect. But still, that's the atmosphere, you know, that I grew up in.
That is tremendous.
And all of a sudden, I was a teenager, but they didn't call us teenagers.
Were you
we
were
were
not.
called young people.
Young people.
Young
right.
people. I never heard the word teenager till my children, you know, started. And then things began to change.
You said my children. That gives a quick segue. You left Marion. We're going to come back to this since we're at the teenage years for you. But you mentioned my children when they used it. You've got family here in the viewing area?
No, actually, one's in Florida and two are in Columbia.
Okay, great. Not far.
And so that Columbia's not in the viewing area, is it?
No, it's not actually. It's not. It borders. It's the adjacent viewing area.
Well, of course, they've grown up with this, so they'll think it's so happy.
That's right. That's right. Maybe they'll find a way. Obviously, a lot of viewers are watching.
Wilson is the oldest, and that's with 2 L's, and that's a North Carolina Wilson. My grandmother Wilson was from Wilmington.
Yes.
And met
which is
grandfather
1 L.
Bethea.
Right, right.
Yeah. But anyway, we're 2 L's, and a cousin I had in Wilmington said to be proud of those 2 L's, and I don't know why, but anyway, Wilson always had a bent toward pretty things and decorating. When I would fluff a pillow, he'd come in and fluff it better. When I would change the curtains, he would notice it. And so he said, I want to be an architect. No. I want to be a landscape designer. No. I want to be an interior designer. So he goes to New York, and he went to the New York School of Design, and he's an interior designer.
Is that right? That's tremendous. That's tremendous.
Yeah, and Henry's a pharmacist in a big hospital in Florida. Right. And Ann Sherwood is, and that's a family name. Sherwood. That comes from North Carolina.
Yes.
She's a caterer and works with her second husband with a bed and breakfast in Columbia.
Great, great. Son of a gun. Well, so at least 2 of the 3 have stayed in the Palmetto State.
Yes, they have.
You get to see them. I'm sure they're in Florence, hopefully on a good basis. Which is very exciting. Well, we did have a guest on Monday, Pete Sealer, who is our columnist, does TV talk for Carolina Weekly, and was very popular. And he said, in teasing, getting ready for your interview today, he said if Ann Powell could charge people to see that interview, she'd make a lot of money. Or if you could charge people, you'd make a lot of money. He's a huge fan of yours. How did you and Pete get to know each other?
Well, Pete found our church group on the internet and started coming. And so when we wrote him in, we've never let him go. I pulled that.